bringing us our conversation this morning with Bob Pollock. Yes, indeed, Mr. Pollock is with us from the Indiana County Extension, brought to you by Marcus & Mack, voted best personal injury law firm in the Best of Indiana County contest. Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. You can give Bob a call at 479-1160 or 349-WCCS if you have a question for him. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
We had a nice 72-degree day yesterday and a 36-degree day today. It's that time of year, isn't it? Those wild temperature swings, which really don't have an impact on plants for the most part.
They can.
Yeah.
Sometimes those are the wild swings are the ones that actually can do damage.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been relatively cool, and we only had, what'd you say it was, 72 yesterday officially?
Yeah.
There have been times when it's gone up into the high 70s or 80s, and then swung the other way in a hurry within 24 hours. And those are more likely to cause issues because plants build up hardiness in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
They go into somewhat of a dormancy period. And as long as those temperatures stay cool, they can stay that way. When we start to get these spikes in the temperatures, then they can come out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to get back into it real fast.
Sort of like somebody shaking them awake a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they're trying to get back to sleep.
Start to get, a little bit of activity in the cells, and then when we have these wide swings, they cannot be quite as prepared. It's like they didn't get their coat on quick enough for that chill to come back again.
Well, would it be correct to say that one of the areas where we would see that would be in the sap running for the maple trees?
Right. Yeah, because
it could start early.
Right. It can start early, and then it can kind of get shut down and back and forth. But those kind of periods can cause, when we warm things up, they lose a little bit of that ability to adapt. We go into very cold conditions, so we're going to get down to around 20 degrees.
22 tonight.
Tonight, that's pretty chilly. So you can actually get some freezing in those cells. The antifreeze in there isn't quite as concentrated enough, and the plant can't adapt fast enough, and then you get freezing occurs in those cells. Well, when the liquid in there freezes, then you can get a bursting of those cells and then plant damage. So that's where that can be a problem.
Okay. The quality of the sap itself, is it more bitter, more sweet? Not affected at all?
It's just that
or the amount, I guess.
Yeah, it's more the concentration of sugars that are in there. And we kind of liken it to antifreeze because when we have antifreeze in water, then that helps keep it'll handle lower temperatures before the liquid will freeze. So that can be, a lot of different plants can get affected like that because if they've had their dormancy period, they've satisfied the temperature ranges that they needed through the winter. A lot of plants need, it might be 45 degrees. We'll use that as an example. And if they have enough days of that during the winter months, then that satisfies that dormancy. And once they've hit that, then they can start to come out of that. When we have, a nice sunny day, it warms up a little bit. They can start to have activity. And then, boom, we go back into winter and cold temperatures, and we get into trouble.
Still a little soon to think about apple blossoms, though.
Oh, yeah.
Things of that nature. Buds coming up.
But when buds swell, they start to, get more moisture in there, start to come out of that dormancy, and then we have that cold snap. You can get that tissue damaged in there, and so that can, affect us, a month or 6 weeks later when those blooms should be starting to open. They can be damaged, and then we'll see what we get.
Yeah.
I mean, the good thing is, in most cases, like an apple tree has way more flowers than it needs to produce a full crop, right? So there's built-in mechanism there to overcome some of that damage or potential damage without harming, and still be able to have a full crop. Now, last spring we got hit, and some people did fine, and other people had damage. Some people didn't get a crop hardly at all. Mm-hmm. The peaches, those stone fruit, peaches, plums, nectarines, those are always a little more questionable because they don't need as much of a dormant period as the apple tree does. So the apple tree stays dormant longer. Peach trees, boy, we get that couple of nice really days early. They can start to move, and then we're more likely to get a damage that lessens or eliminates the crop for the year.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about something different this morning. Hot boxes, and particularly out in the yard, the kind that you put out in your yard. Dig the hole, put the old window that you took out when you changed your windows. Put it as the lid that's going to
single pane window.
Let the light in and heat it up down there. Is it too soon to start planting that or not? I think it's probably about the right time, isn't it?
Yeah, you can start plants in there, and if you have, depending on how you've structured that and how resistant it is to cold, and the size of it, that'll kind of dictate a little bit as to whether, how soon you can get that going. If you have a heat mat in there, sometimes people will put an electric heat mat in there to give some bottom heat, or even a light bulb can sometimes give off enough heat just to keep things from freezing in there. Uh-huh. If you want to have a little bit of insurance and not just rely on there. And of course, usually we're putting plants in there that are more able to handle cooler temperatures also, to get things started.
So you're putting your broccoli out there right now?
Yeah, broccoli, lettuces, maybe even some onions put in there that you might want to have
early season
for scallions. Yeah, early season, cool season.
Do people take
cool season crops?
Do people take styrofoam and put it along the edges?
Yeah, you can do that.
Line it along the walls of your hot box.
Just gives a little bit of insulation there. Mm-hmm. Yep.
When you have a hot box such as that, and you've got new plants in it, I'm assuming that that sun, even though it's a winter sun, is going to heat it up pretty good with that glass there, and you'll have to really watch the moisture.
Yeah. The moisture and the temperature.
Uh-huh.
On a day like yesterday, it would have gotten pretty warm in there.
Yeah.
That you might have even had to crack the lid to let some of that heat out because it would have been too warm. And that smaller the space, the quicker that can heat up and kill the plants, dry the soil out.
Yeah.
As well as be too warm for the plants.
Now, if people are not planting it outdoors in the yard, in a hole, and they're doing it indoors instead and using the big picture window to try to get some plants started, they can be doing that now.
Yes, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can have your own kitchen garden, in a sense.
Just turn it so you don't have a plant that's constantly leaning,
right? That's
looking
right.
for the sun.
Yeah, and that's one of the signs that we know of that when a plant's not getting enough light, different plants need different amounts of light. Most vegetables they like to be in full sun for the most part. So that's a signal that, hey, this plant's not either close enough to the window or there's not enough light coming in through that to get the natural light to take care of that. So that's when we might have to say, okay, we might need some supplemental lighting until the days start to get longer, or we might need to look for a different orientation, a different window on a different side of the house that naturally gets more light so that we can take care of that.
Preparation for insects and trying to forestall, for instance, birds building nests. That's not insects, but birds building nests on your downspouts, for bees' nests and their start. Is it the time of year to start doing that now so that when the weather warms up, they're not there?
Sure. If you have time now, it's a lot easier to do it now than wait till later. However, that sometimes that's hit or miss. Not necessarily every year do the birds come in and try to nest in a certain place? Although sometimes when they
find a home they like.
start to get a habit of doing that, they'll be back. So especially on those locations where you've had a problem in the past, go ahead and get that set up. Sometimes like on a windowsill or on a porch pillar, there's just enough of a flat spot there up at the top or a little ledge that might be there, depending on the architecture and the structure of that's enough for them to start building a nest. Or you put your Easter wreath out on your door.
And now there's somebody.
They'll try to make a nest in there. Amazing how that works. But when they start bringing that material in, if you haven't protected that, and even in wreaths, just some very thin wire, making like wrapping that over there like the spokes of a wheel, just enough to keep them from being able to get in there. And then from a distance, you can't even see that wire's there. Just a board, just a simple board laid up against on an angle, up above the window on the, not on the windowsill, but on the framing above that. All that's enough to deter them and not give them enough space. Of course, they make spiked metal spikes and all that kind of stuff that you can use as well to put in those locations to keep birds away.
I set up a wire and the darn thing stole my internet. Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome.
Voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160.